Hey guys, Josiah here with EasyTraders.com. Just wanted to go over the day's trades. I actually didn't trade a whole lot today, and that's pretty typical for me. I'm a pretty laid back trader. I usually just look for one or two good setups in the day and that I feel confident in, and then trade those and call it a day. I'm not one of these that just is trading in and out every few minutes and so forth. But so so what I actually did do today is I took a trade on CVS that ended up being a small loser, not because the trade was bad or that it didn't work even. It actually worked fine. I trailed myself out at a loss, a small 0.3R loss. Um, and basically I entered in as this smooth pullback came into demand over here, and I gave a volume signal and so forth. I bought over the red, and but then I realized that this actually didn't fit my trading plan, and so that shook my confidence a little bit, um, and also just some of the volume signals that were happening in here, I think on the 1 minute, made me question whether or not it would work very well. So I trailed myself out of it at a small loss, like I said, and then later I ended up trading a nice 2R winner on Citigroup. But anyway, so I thought I'd review some charts today, look at some price action setups and some volume signals and so forth, show you kind of what I look for. And I think there are also many other ways to use the relative volume than what I do. I only trade it on trends. But I think there's a lot of good ways to trade it both on trends and ranges that I just don't have the hours in the day to figure out, all at once. So I trade what I know and go from there. Anyway, so what I look for is a kind of a complex pullback or a break to a higher high after a complex pullback. And I look to get into the first smooth pullback that happens after that higher high is put in. I really like the marginal higher highs where you just barely put in a small higher high, then do a smooth pullback, and then hopefully go on to power to new highs and so forth. So let's see. In this case, so we had a complex pullback here. This was a double bottom on the small time frame that probably, it looks like here, gave a good signal on the volume and so forth, but I was not in that. Here was a nice smooth pullback that I could have taken as this made a new marginal high here, but I wasn't around for that. I took this one as it was a smooth pullback after this high. But in retrospect, like I said, I felt like this didn't really match my plan because we'd made a measured move, and so this had already kind of reached target, and I shouldn't have really have been looking for another higher high, which obviously it didn't make any meaningful new highs after this point. So that's generally why I try to stay out of those that have already made a measured move. Let's see if there's some other setups here that I could have taken and missed. Yeah, so it looks like we had a complex pullback here in a strong stock, made a new high, and then we had this kind of, it chopped some people up right here, and then had this smooth pullback here, which it was not that great, and it didn't work out that great, as you can see here. Yeah, so we ended up doing this deeper pullback, and then it just kind of range bound the rest of the day. And that's kind of what I've found on most of the stocks that I was looking at today. I didn't really, the stocks that I identified early in the morning didn't pan out to be the types of stocks that I usually trade. I really want to look at the strongest of the strong by several measures that I look at. And so some of them just didn't seem to turn into those like I would have expected them to. So I ended up not finding a lot of trades, though I did miss a couple that I saw. Um, so this was an interesting case. So we had a bigger time frame bottom here. We put in a marginal higher high here. So on maybe the 5 minute or something, the 10 minute perhaps, this would have been a nice smooth pullback that I could have taken on that time frame. But you can see here it didn't really do anything exciting the rest of the day. So there was some resistance, it seemed like, for some of these that, for several of them, in fact, that came in. So here's one. Let's see here, we had a complex pullback here, made a marginally higher high here, and then did a smooth pullback down to this red candle, which is one that I could have bought a breakout over. And so we had a little bit of pain there. This one was a nice marginal higher high as well. Smooth pullback. This would have been valid as well. And it looks like both of those worked fine. So those would have been some that I would like to look for during the day that I just didn't see. Just had my eyes on something else. NVDA. Let's see here. So this one was kind of choppy, and I noticed it. I don't trade this one a lot, and I noticed that it seemed to be giving some chop to traders here that I usually don't like to see. So this one had a nice smooth pullback, but then chopped up some people as it bottomed out here, and it's just by like 1 penny or so. So it was just not a very disciplined stock. So I just kind of try to stay away from those when I can. But it was so strong today that I kept looking at it and kept looking for trades on it and missed a couple. But anyway, so we had a marginally higher high here after this complex pullback. And I've got my cat visiting me here on the desk. But anyway, and we had a nice volume signal here after the marginal higher high. And on this pullback, probably on the 1 minute chart, this would have been a really good trade. Marginal higher high here, smooth pullback, that would have been a valid trade as well. See what else we've got here. This is one that was strong, but it wasn't strong early in the day. But the volume is too inconsistent for me to like trading those. So I really look for the super liquid, super consistent volume stocks that are basically super strong for the day. So those are the kinds that I look for. This one is kind of weekly trending higher. I'm trying to see if there's anything that I could have taken in here. The volume kind of tapered off in the middle of the day here. We had a higher high put in here with a small pullback there that probably would have been valid. This one especially, this one was a good one. Even though there wasn't a lot of volume going on, we had a marginal higher high, broke out over these highs, and we had a nice little volume signal there that kind of fed into that. So that probably would have been a good one on NTNX. Not a lot of room to get in on this one here. We have a pullback here, marginal higher high, smooth pullback down into here, but this one kind of became a complex pullback. It was pulling down into this major support area. So what I would have looked for on this one is this marginal higher high here and this smooth pullback there. And we got a volume signal there, and that would have been good. Even though that was a really tiny stop, so I probably would not have actually traded that on how I normally do. I might have put the stop under this pivot here or something like that. So let's see here. We got, this one was okay. It wasn't as strong as I would have liked. It was just kind of slowly trending upward. I probably would have just stayed away from this one in general, but it did work out. It looks like for 2 R's on this entry. We had a couple of possibilities here. So we had a complex pullback here, and then it broke, changed its character there, pulled we had a higher high put in here and then a smooth pullback there as well. And so that one would have been a valid entry, and I didn't take that one either, but that one did work for 2 Rs as well. And then we just kind of turned into a lot less volume came in. We broke under these lows, so I wouldn't have been interested at that point. Just Microsoft. So I was watching it earlier in the day, and I think I missed the trade that I could have taken. So we had a drop down, marginal higher high here, some churn, and we had this opening drive up to here. We did this nice deep pullback, and so I was watching this earlier in the day, and I was kind of looking for it to put in a pivot that I could look for a higher high over. This one I felt like I was too high and at the time, and had this big volume burst that happened at the top. So I was like, okay, that looks kind of bearish. So I kind of lost interest just before it became a good setup. And so let's see here, we had a nice double bottom and a small time frame double bottom within that at this major support area here. Slightly higher low, and breakout over one of these red candles is usually pretty good in that case. We had, because you can see here, we put in a higher high just as we break out over those. And so that breaks the tiny downtrend and gives you a chance to get back up here to the highs to test this high. And so we broke this high, came up to this level and broke this high, and then had a nice smooth pullback there. And this one would have been a valid trade for me that I probably should have taken. Should have been sitting around waiting for that one. And that one almost got up to, let's say, got up to about 3 Rs here. And let's see if it eventually got to 115 just at 4 Rs. So if you had, let's see, did it stop us out there? Yeah, so it would have trailed out here if you were holding for a bigger target. But this one did get to my normal 2R target, so that one would have been a good trade. Deep pullback here. Yeah, nothing else to do that I see there. See what else we got. Some strength initially, but I never would have traded that one because it got weak pretty soon after the open. So this one was trending well. So this one's Citi, yeah. So this is the one that I took a trade on, and had a couple of trades I think that I missed. So we had this initial jump. I'm trying to see if there's anything that I could have taken in here. I don't see anything on this complex pullback. It broke up here. There's probably something on a really tiny time frame in there that could have been taken, but that wouldn't have been something I would have been looking for. Complex pullback coming in here. So this one broke to a higher high, marginally higher high right here. Smooth pullback. This one would have been takeable for me. Definitely more attractive over the green than the red, but I only do over the reds. And so that one eventually got to 2 Rs there. Gave you a couple of opportunities to get out. And we had a deep pullback here, broke to a higher high here. And so this is where I actually did trade this stock. So let me zoom this properly here so we can see see what happened here. So we had a high here. We broke that high and had a nice smooth pullback here. This green would have been a really attractive setup, but I only buy over the reds. So I missed this one. Came back from the store. I actually wasn't watching it through here. I just saw it on my list as I came back from the store and noticed this little pullback here. And we had made a higher high here, and we'd made a marginally higher high versus that high. And so this was a nice smooth pullback there. And so I entered on a break over this red, which wasn't that attractive of a setup, honestly, because the risk to reward wasn't that great at that point. But ended up working okay. I put my stop under this level here, and we made another higher high here, marginally over these highs, and nice pullback that could have been taken here along with this volume signal. That's something that I really like to see. And then we were off to the races, and that one worked perfectly, especially if you'd been patient and taken this one right here. You wouldn't have had to sit through any pain, and you would have been off to your target almost immediately. This one was another valid pullback that you could have taken as well. Higher high, smooth pullback. A buy over the break of this red candle would have been valid, and that would have gotten you probably 2 to 4 Rs there. And then we completely fell apart after that. So, but this one had already made a huge move, and so I definitely wouldn't have been. So let's see here. We had a initial measured move here, and the larger time frame had a measured move from here up to here again. So this was an obvious target area for that. If you see here what I mean, I'll just kind of show you how that looks in my way of viewing this. So you can see that, whoop, my computer's getting a little funky because of the video. But so we run from this level here, and then if we take this and transpose it up to here, then we get a potential target area. So this was getting extended into that area, and so I wouldn't have been looking for a lot more room for this one to run, honestly. Just because it had been so strong during the day. Though you never want to bet against trends usually. I just, get a lot less excited about taking them later in the day. So anyway, those are the stocks I had on my watch list. I'm sure there were a ton of other setups that were missed, but the ones that I watch early in the morning just didn't have a lot going on, and I missed the ones, most of the ones that did happen. So the ones that I ended up taking were CVS and Citi, and one of those, well, both of them worked. One of them I managed wrong, and the other one worked perfectly for a nice 2-hour target. So that's what I had today. I was trading this using relative volume. As you can see, I look for those volume signals to confirm my entries. They give a little bit better confirmation that some big orders are coming in. And I also use this, position sizer to make sure that my risk is always the same on every single trade I take. You can see up here it tells me the entry, stop, and target, and the number of shares to buy at each candle throughout the day. And so you can size that to a 5-minute candle, 15-minute candle, whatever kind of entries you want. You can size it based on ATRs or dev stops, or manual stop levels, whatever you choose to set it to. I use price action stops, but anyway, so gives you a lot of information to use during the day, and tells you those quick reference numbers for how many shares to buy and where to place your entry, stop, and target, and so forth. So that's what I use, along with just some basic stuff like a moving average, which I don't have on this particular chart, but just to gauge how strong the trend is and so forth. And that's what I do. So hopefully this has been valuable to you if going over these price action setups with relative volume and the position sizing. If that helps, please give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe, and we'll do some more of these in the future. And meanwhile, I appreciate it, and we'll talk to you later.